up in here, or is it good just?
I mean, if you're close, that's cool.
Okay.
We could change the mic height.
No. Oh yeah. Whatever. You think I would know how to do this shit by now?
We could have Ryan just hold the mic for you too.
If I hold it, I'll throw it at someone. I have done that. I played this show, this really stupid show, in front of like, I think there was like 17,000 people. I was with these DJs, and it was really embarrassing. It'll fit somewhere into this story, or into this lecture. But I was so over it, and it was a cordless mic, and so I was just like, and threw it out in the crowd and just bailed. I'm done. Wasn't getting paid enough. Okay, so I'm Justin Pearson. I run a record label called 31G, and when I was asked to do this lecture, I was like, yeah, sure, totally. And I saw Bobby Gray do his lecture, and I was like, okay, that shit's great. Like, it made sense. It was very linear. I could wrap my head around it. Not that this, like asking someone like, oh, how is it to start a record label? It's one thing to be like, I'm a businessman, and you do these things, and you crunch these numbers, and you make this much money, and you do this and that. But I was like, oh man, this is a kind of a gnarly topic, because for me, it's not like, I'm gonna start a business, and it's gonna create these products, and we're gonna make this much money, and then we're gonna make a career out of it. It was kind of like, I'm into art, and I'm gonna fuck around and make something from nothing, and I'm gonna try to be morally sound and ethically in line with my, I guess the things that kind of projected me into doing what I'm doing. So we're talking about capitalism, we're talking about all these things that like go way beyond like, oh yeah, I started a business. So yeah, I was just like, great, how am I gonna do this in an hour? And so I apologize in advance, because I made this, this list of things to try to cover, and I feel like it's very hard to go like business-y or artistic-y or however to kind of tell a story, because I feel like all of those things kind of matter. And I'm not even really sure, like when all this stuff was happening. Okay, so I started 31G, let's see, at age 19, which was 94. I wasn't a normal teenager. I started playing music a bit before that. I think it was 90, and I went on tour with my first band. And the things that were inspiring to me as a musician, which I also still struggle with calling myself a musician, because I don't know how to read music. I don't know what's right or what's wrong. I just do what I think sounds cool, and then I roll with it. And if people like it, that's cool. And if they don't like it, that's also totally cool. But I think the reason why I started it was out of a necessity. It was sort of like a thing that I absolutely had to do for survival. And again, like, at age 15 or age 19 when 31G actually started, I didn't really know the things. I wasn't conscious of the things that I know. So a lot of it is in retrospect. Okay, this is why I did this. This is the thing that I did. This is why I had to do these things, or why I totally fucked everything up and did these things, and I justify mistakes or try to figure out reasons why I did things. Maybe that would contrast what a business would be, because I do feel like the side of business and the side of art clash more often than I think most people are aware of. Again, yeah, I started the label in a strange time, 94. We're talking pre-internet, Spotify, pre-everything. There was, there was like barely CDs. It was kind of like a thing. It was all about vinyl and cassettes, and we were on the coattails of people duplicating cassettes and how it was killing the music industry. But for me, I came from this strange subculture, that a lot of it came. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's a record label called Discord. It's run by Ian MacKaye. He was in Fugazi, or he is still in Fugazi, I guess. But that label and that band were kind of this sort of moral focus, a moral compass for what me and my friends were doing. So there was a lot of ethics to it. For instance, like selling records for a certain amount of money, playing shows for a certain amount of money, and it wasn't a capitalistic endeavor. It wasn't a goal to make a living. It wasn't something that you would think of from a business perspective. And still, at this point, like I'd never thought, oh, I'm gonna start a business or went to school for business or music. I just kind of did this thing that all my friends were doing, and it was like, again, it was a subculture, but I felt like it was sort of like a fragment or like just a piece of a subculture. So it was, you know, you have this umbrella of punk, but under this umbrella of punk, there are all these different little elements. And so in this place that I fit in, or where me and my friends fit in, had all these sort of things. Like we were very political. We were very, I mean, I guess, you know, I could like on paper, you know, I would say, oh, I'm an anarchist, but in real life, like, I'm not an anarchist because of the conditioning that I have as a human being in the world that we live in. It won't allow for the, you know, successful political structure that I would like to have. So I do find myself struggling with this thing called ethical capitalism. So you know, we go on tour or we put out records and we make money as a capitalist, but when you consider like all the labor and all of the elements that go into making even just one song or one record or getting in a van to play one show, we're as an artist on the level that I'm at, like everything we do, we're losing money. And it's not about the money. That's not the goal. The point is for some sort of survival. And a lot of people think like that playing music or creating art is fun, and it could be fun for some people, and it is fun in some sense, but it's, for me, it was never like fun, like this is rad, let's jam, and like this is gonna be cool, and we'll put out records, and it's gonna be an awesome time, and you know, we'll celebrate, and we'll do these things. It was this huge thing to network with people all over the planet, to be able to create art, to inspire ourselves, to inspire others, and to, you know, I guess in retrospect, to change the world. But that's a very naive way of thinking of things, because for me and most of the people that I played with, we were just playing music. We were just in a band, and it was usually just a terrible punk band. But we were, in a sense, trying to change something. Our goal wasn't to change the world or change the planet, but it was just to kind of project something in this positive light. And I feel like the only way I could do it was, you know, with my friends, was to create a record label and to do these things as ethically sound as I possibly could. So I started a record label, and you know, when I was 19, I'm 46, so I'll admit I just learned what an S corp is this last week. That's because I'm not a businessman, you know. I mean, I'm not. I'm a punk. I'm a weirdo. I just create stuff with my friends. I unfortunately have to like crunch numbers and stuff every now and then, and I am pretty reckless when it comes to running a business. But it's all from my heart, and I think that's an important thing, which I feel like a lot of capitalistic endeavors lack. So I'd like to dive into starting a label and kind of go through a few points of why I started the business, how the business evolved with, you know, the music industry that it happens to fall under. I think that it's a pretty cruel industry. I think it creates stuff based on what is successful, so you make these carbon copies of things, and it kind of limits people who are creative and willing to do something unique. And for you to be discovered, it's sort of like winning some kind of lottery. So I bought some records to show you. There's also pictures up there. This is just a photo of a bunch of albums that 31G released kind of early on. Weird shapes and sizes. Obviously, colored vinyl is the jam. For me, it was always about like the packaging was very, very important. I mean, the music was always very important as well. But for me, to get a record label started, I needed to focus on the things that I could control. me writing good or bad music, I can't really control that. I just do what I do. But controlling it and making an actual physical product that has something unique to it, to where it's this tangible thing, where it's almost like an artifact that you want to own. It's something you can hold in your hand. You can feel it. You can. There's more to it. It tells you something. It's not just a click on a playlist or something. You need to have the product. It was really, really important to me. And a lot of that comes back to my childhood, getting like Star Wars books that you would read along with, or Kiss is terrible. We'll talk about Kiss later, but like the gimmicks and the like marketing that Kiss had as a capitalist endeavor was very influential on me as a kid, and that also kind of meshed into my perception of music and punk rock. And I should have brought it with me. This one record that just changed the game for me was this. So I was into skateboarding before I got into punk, and it was the Thrasher Skate Rock Volume 2 LP, and it was shaped like the front of a skateboard. The cover was shaped, and it was like the coolest packaging. And I was like, I just wanted to be part of something so unique and interesting like that. I would just stare at it. So these things translated into what I was going to start to do as a business. So I put out a record when I was 15 or 16 by this band I was in called Struggle, and we were on this record label called Ebullition, who were very much like the one I mentioned, Discord. So they had like this sort of like strict way of making things look, and they were very records were never more than $2.50 for a 7-inch or $5 an LP. Back then, that was it was still a cheap price, but it was very reasonable, and it was accessible to people. And I think that was important because it was accessible to younger people. It was accessible to lower income people, punks who usually didn't have money or jobs or whatever. So it seemed like a good starting point for me to reference. So I'm gonna grab a couple things and show you guys to kind of help articulate what I'm trying to say. So real quick, this is the first 7-inch I put out. That I was on. It was put out on Ebullition. So it was really cool to me because it comes like with a booklet, and it has writing and it has pictures, and it seemed a little bit like the books or the records that I would get as a child, like with the Star Wars record, and you'd kind of read along. And I was just kind of obsessed with the fact that the packaging wasn't just junk, because a lot of punk bands were doing these sort of fold over 7x14 inch photocopied covers, and no offense to those kind of bands, but that was sort of the norm of or like where I was at as far as like what I could put out or what my bands would be putting out. So fast forward a year or two, I started a second band at the age of 19, and it was called Swing Kids. And a friend of ours on the East Coast sent us, I think $200, and was like, let's put a record out. And we're like, cool. And we went to this place, Double Time in El Cajon, where a lot of the bands were recording at the time. We rushed, through. We had a few hours to record. We recorded an EP. We sent it to him, and he the person that released it initially kind of changed a few things. And so as an artist, I think maybe if you're an artist or something, or maybe not, you can still relate to like the sort of details of things. So we were like, we want to, we don't want it to be like crappy. We want like a real cover, like a bound, like glued 7-inch cover, and we want it to look this certain way. And we had this idea, and so he didn't deliver, and we were kind of bummed. The kid at the time was awesome. He still is. I still know him. He's famous now, which is kind of funny. But anyhow, at the time, I think we were all just like poor, so he just went and photocopied covers and stuff, and he started doing things like putting out shirts with our band on it and not asking us, and it was a little frustrating because I felt like as a person in a band, I could at least do as bad as he was doing. Like I could at least kind of half-ass these covers, and I could at least make crappy shirts, and we could go on tour. So he stopped doing his label for whatever reason, and my idea was to repress this Swing Kid 7-inch. And so just so at the time, Swing Kid shared a member with this band called Unbroken, who's like a famous San Diego hardcore band. And Eric Allen from Unbroken was like, well, you should start a record label and you should put out these 2 Unbroken songs that we have. And that will be like a thing to kind of launch it off, because they were pretty popular at the time. And so he's like, you should put out the Unbroken 7-inch, and then you should redo this Swing Kid 7-inch, and you'll have a record label, and you can call it JP Records, and you'll be very successful. And it was very, very charming and cute of him to say all that. Obviously wasn't gonna call it JP Records, but I was like, hey, I'll put these records out. I love Unbroken, they're my family, and obviously, I loved my own band, maybe not musically, but personally, it was very important to us. So I'm gonna show you a couple of the details and kind of show like why or how things started. So I'm gonna grab a couple records. Okay, so to backtrack just a tiny bit before I talk about these records, the first 3 1G records, I'm gonna show you this album here by Antioch Arrow. So the cover it's just spray painted on cardboard, and it's very simple. It's artistically probably one of the best record covers or packaging I think that's ever existed. It's also one of my favorite albums of all time, but it was this that kind of made me realize that you could do anything with nothing. And so really, you pay for the cost of the vinyl itself, and then you just get some cardboard and you spray paint, and the cost is nothing. And it stood out from everything that was happening. Like even other hardcore bands at this time were putting out stuff that looked like Struggle. It looked like a nice, real professional record, or like a lot of punk and hardcore and straight edge bands were using like glossy covers and like full color. And the fact that a band like Antioch Arrow came along and just spray painted this weird shit. I think this is actually from a movie that Frank Sinatra was in or something. The art, it's cool that they stole it, that's fine, but like everything about it just was like amazing. It was spray painted, and I was like, dude, that is kind of the best thing I've ever seen as far as what is now known as DIY culture. So it was kind of redefining things, and also taking, again, the resources we had were nothing. We were limited. So trying to figure out ways to make something unique that stood out against everything else that was coming out, and also to do it without actually, I didn't have any money, so I was trying to figure out ways to start a record label. So this was this sort of very, very influential starting point for me, Antioch Arrow's first record. So Eric comes, and he's like, here's the Unbroken record, like, let's do this thing, let's put this record out. And he makes it like super junky and photocopied, and I was like, dude, I want to do like a real record. I want it to look really nice. I don't want it to look like all the punk and hardcore records that were coming out that were just a fold over piece of, cardstock from Kinko's. But he insisted on it, and we compromised because the thing that we were like agreeing on was like, there's a rubber stamp. They're all stamped mainly with silver ink, and I was like, okay, cool, this is really rad. Like, it looks weird. It's kind of like a unique thing, and it was still within my realm of financial my financial reach. So that goes into like how and I guess how I kind of financially started a record label, which maybe ties into the moral stuff that I was talking about, because it wasn't necessary. To some people it might. I mean, I'm a fucking crook to some extent. I was shoplifting and I was stealing, and so I was like, all right, let's just rip off Kinko's and let's just make 2,000 record covers for free in Kinko's. And so what we do is we would grab these copy keys and steal them, and then we go in again with our own and make 2,000 copies, put it in our bag, and then pay for 5 copies on their key, and then split. And then we were essentially doing what I thought, maybe Anti-Aggro was doing when they weren't having to actually pay for a cover, and that was sort of the point, because we didn't have record labels like funding us. We didn't have, we were just these punk kids that would scrounge up a couple $100 to record with some dude in El Cajon that didn't care. He just pushed record and let you do whatever you wanted, which was also cool. But we didn't have the ability to make nice things, so we were trying to make things interesting and nice, but like nice without using the same tools that most, like a normal label would do. So even to press 1,000 copies of it, just the vinyl itself, was more than I was able to come up with. I was just out of high school. I was in college. I've been living on my own for a few years. I had like crappy jobs here and there that I would work until I got fired because I went on tour. So it really wasn't like I didn't have like a lot of money. So what I found out that I could do was I would enroll in community college, and since my dad had passed away a few years earlier, so I was getting financial aid, which the financial aid was helping me. They would pay for books and housing. So my rent that I was paying in this house was $60 or $75, and I would just steal all the books from the bookstore at the college. So I would get this financial aid, and I would use that to put out Unbroken 7 inches and Swing Kid 7 inches, which makes me the crook, I guess. But to me, I'm thinking, I'm an anarchist, and I fuck capitalism and stuff. And we're gonna figure out a way to start a record label and go on tour and do these cool things. So also too, to backtrack, I mentioned my dad dying. One thing that I got from him, as him being my father, was he was a totally good bullshitter, and I learned that from him. It's in my DNA. So I was able to bullshit the things that I needed to do to sort of survive, to get crappy jobs and to make ends meet, so I could do the things that were in my heart and things that I felt mattered, at least to me, which were putting out records and playing in bands with my friends. So thanks, Steve, for that one. And then so to kind of like get back to the packaging element, what I really wanted from that first Unbroken 7-inch was this, which is, this is about 20 years after the original pressing of the 7-inch. So it's in a real cover. It's well, obviously it's also black, which is cooler than white. So but it's in like a real cover. It looks like a real record. It's also cool vinyl. It's just packaged like a real 7-inch, which is what I initially wanted, but Eric was opposed to it. He wanted it to be like as DIY and punk rock as he could. So I struggled with that, and eventually got on path with doing what I wanted to do. But so here's the two versions of the Swing Kid 7-inch to kind of explain my gripe. And some of you might think that's stupid or not that big of a deal, but to me it really was. It meant a lot to me. So the first 7-inch on the other person's label, it came out like this. He added a white border, and it was because he photocopied it at Kinko's as well. The cover is like that. It's kind of, to me, it's fine, but it's sort of like, I don't mean to sound like a dick, but I'm a dick, so it's junky. I was like, I don't know, I don't want to be in a band that puts out like a photocopied junky record. So then here comes 31G, this record label that I decided to start. And the first version of that 7-inch is an actual, binded cover, kind of like the Unbroken one. Comes with, cool vinyl and a cover that is glued shut. And I learned all these different things along the way. And a lot of it was like this insane amount of labor. So I would go to my friend's print shop who would print the paper, and it would have like these little like tabs on the side, so I'd have to fold every cover and put glue and hold them down and glue every single cover. So like I think I probably did 3,000 of them, where I would cut and glue and fold all these records. So if someone wants to call 31G or me a capitalist, they can suck it, because the amount of labor that went into just gluing a stupid 7-inch that I could sell for $2.50 is pretty insane, because it took me forever, and it was painful. But at the end of the day, it was like I put out a cool record, and I was, without realizing it, starting a record label that kind of had had a vibe. It had an artistic element to it that was really important. And so that was the launching point to me being. That was the launching point into absurdity for 31G. So let me just make sure I'm covering everything, because I feel like taking, like I mentioned, like taking cues from Discord and stuff were really important. But again, I'm telling you like that I was a crook and I was stealing, which I was, and it was funny because I was kind of in cahoots with Discord. When I was stealing all these things, I was stealing stamps from the post office, and I was trading them with Discord for records and starting a distro and selling records on tour. So it got pretty intertwined with my predecessors or whatever, like the people that influenced me. So let's see. I'm gonna move on to some other photos to show you. So starting a record label. Let's see. This is the Locust, which happened a few years after 31G started. But starting a record label needed a vessel for me to kind of make it grow. And so the Locust was a very important thing for me. Obviously, it was a band that I played in with Bobby, but it was the thing that gave me the tools to go out into the world and to meet people and to connect with them by playing shows and by sharing, life with these people, these other bands, and it was those people that became part of 31G that made 31G more than just a business, more than just a record label or whatever. It became a community, and it was bands like Jenny Piccolo. Early on, Jenny Piccolo was like the main band. Hispanic Corzo, we did a record. 31G did a record with Hispanic Corzo, and then Festival of Dead Deer, Crimson Curse. It kind of started branching out and going out into the world and meeting people from Black Dice who were in New York and so on and so forth. It became this bigger community, and so the Locust was this sort of the vehicle that got me around to meet all these people. And it was also interesting because yes, it was 31G that I started, but I do feel like the Locust was a very important part of the business and the business model and the kind of structure, and also just kind of like the community that it was creating. Because not only did I get to go on tour and meet all these other people in other cities or states or countries and put their records out, but it was also like kind of understood that over time, if you were a member of the Locust or a member of another band on 31G and you were putting out your other band's record, we would just do it. It made sense because it was really an important thing to kind of show this camaraderie with other artists, especially ones that I have such a strong personal connection with. I play in a band with them. Being in a band with someone is sort of like being in like a really complicated, 4 or 5 person relationship. You all have to like get along and live together and sleep in the same van or on the same floor or wherever. And so, we would do these other projects, Cattle Decapitation, Holy Molar, and whatever. And so all these other bands would kind of come up and again build into this bigger family of artists. So the Locust is definitely like the sort of vessel, because I do get solicited quite often from bands, randomly online asking if we'll put out their record and stuff, and I'm like, I need to see you, I need to know you, I need to see you live, there needs to be a human interaction, because I don't make money and I'm running through 1G and I can't just shell out a few $1,000s for someone, as good or bad as they might be. It's just something that I need to be like a personal thing. So it's very important, and sort of like how to run a label, like having that connection with someone is very important. So I'm constantly telling people that almost daily that I don't know, like, thanks for contacting us through Bandcamp, but I can't put your record out because I don't know you. But it is going on tour and meeting people that changes it. It's being able to understand these human beings and like see firsthand the amount of work and energy and love that goes into what they create. That's where I go, okay, let's do this. Let's take the plunge and hopefully it'll at least recoup. So let's see. I'm gonna move on to the next photo here. This isn't my laptop, so I'm having a problem navigating. This is another absurd record that I put out. This is 3-1G number 7. So at this point, at this point it started getting weird. I'll point this out. So these are square 7-inch records that to manufacture one of these albums, you have to pay for the cost of an LP. You have to pay for the additional cost of cutting the LP into a square, and then you have to sell it for the price of a 7-inch. So you're just fucked no matter what. It's like the worst business model ever. But I was like, dude, that looks so sick. It's a square. Like that looks like a floppy disk or something, and it was the coolest thing. And I didn't really care too much. But here, wait, check this out. Maybe this will be funny. So okay. Okay, so let me just start with this. So the square record, so awesome. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's put those out. Like, this is ridiculous. I could sell it for $4, but it cost me like $3.90 to make. Yeah, terrible idea. So that's like when they're like, talk about being a businessman. I'm like, yeah, just fucking good luck. I don't have a lot of business. But like, this is badass and super cool. And so I was like, oh yeah, let's do that, and then like let's repress it on fucking gray vinyl too, and whatever. All a terrible idea. And it's funny because now it's like you can find them on eBay for $50, and I'm like, cool. I sold it for $4.90. I made 10 cents off of it. I technically lost money on every copy because I did pay for the recordings. But you know what? It's awesome, and I don't know. Like, not everybody does this. Not everyone's stupid enough to put out a square record. I am, and I'm kind of psyched on that. And I think that shows something. I don't know. To me, it's like I could be smart, or I could do something totally fucking rad and put that out. And again, going back to like the absurd thing, record number 3. So we did the Unbroken 7-inch, the Swing Kid 7-inch, and then record number 3 was a 10-inch split with Spanic Corzo and Swing Kids, and that was getting a little weird. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So record number 4 was probably it was the first weird one, maybe one of the weirder ones of the whole catalog. Was this 5-inch picture disc, which you can't actually play on a lot of record players. So like you'll put the needle on and it'll just like turn off right away. There's nothing smart about this release at all, but it looks awesome. I mean, can you see it all? I mean, I don't know. People that are live streaming it, hopefully you can see this. It's the coolest record. It just looks awesome. And I was like, oh, we got to do that. And it didn't even stop there. It's like, okay, it's got to come with a cool insert, with like 2 sides, one for each band. It's a split with Jenny Piccolo, and then let's just throw in a third insert. This is another one that we made at Kinko's, and it's a mock 3. It's a 3D like mock print where they used to have red and blue ink. So we do a red one, we move it a little bit, make a blue one. It looks 3D. So I was still cutting corners and saving on these parts, but the vinyl I couldn't scam that. But so I was starting to like realize, oh yeah, man, we could make cool, weird stuff and start a business that was almost like an art project. It was almost like, we were playing music, which also is people would say that's not music, or that's noise or garbage or whatever, but we could just throw ourselves under this weird umbrella of avant-garde. Oh, we're just like into avant-garde stuff, and so we're just gonna make this weird thing like, I don't know, like Yoko Ono did or something, and just call it that, and like try to get like legitimacy from it. But the problem at that point was that we were young, and people kind of looked at us like, you're just kids doing this stupid shit, which is fine. But I started something that I thought was cool, and I did it on my own, and even though I was a crook, I didn't go to jail or anything. So I think maybe it wasn't too terrible. Cool. So I brought a bunch of other releases that I would like to show you, just to kind of go through like the sort of absurdity of the packaging. I don't know. I mean, again, like it's like, how do I talk? Do I talk about being a business person, or do I show you like cool shit that we did, that we like just weird hacks and strange things that you could do to records? I don't know, because it gets pretty weird here. I made a list of things I want to cover, and it goes in these directions that might make no sense to normal human beings, but maybe it will make sense to all you guys because you're all here. So so let's see. I covered Kinko's. how we would steal all that stuff. We had very low standards, and we were also pretty poor, so we would just, try to rethink stuff and be influenced by stuff like spray paint, covers. Again, and also too, all that was like pre-DIY culture, so we were creating this thing which felt like, someone's Etsy account in a sense, without Etsy, being a thing. So we had these long-term goals, and they were that there was no future, and that was why I don't think I ever really planned ahead. I thought, we're gonna just put this square record out, and we're gonna just cruise around on tour, and as long as we can get from point A to point B and perform and feed ourselves and pay our rent back home, then we're probably good. And it was never like, we're gonna make a career out of this, and we're gonna be successful, and we're gonna, end up on MTV or something. MTV was still relevant at that point. Yeah, I mean, like, my uncle would be like, why aren't you on MTV? And I'm like, do you see what we fucking look like with masks and shit on? Like, we're not gonna be on MTV. So, yeah, there was no future. It was really just kind of like, our concern was, can we somehow recoup, and can we not really think about the consequences of financial instability? And that was giving us all the power that we needed to do whatever we did. So a normal business person or a normal label would think like, okay, well, you have to sell, this many to break even and this many to recoup. And I never thought about that stuff. And I put in this insane amount of labor just because I felt like, I mean, even like the labor was one thing if I was in the band, but there was times where I wasn't even in the band. I was like, let's do this crazy thing. So I'll show you another one. I met this band from New York called Black Dice, awesome dudes. I was like, hey, let's put out a record. And they were like, sure, let's do this, let's do a book. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, a book. That makes a lot of sense. Like the ones when I was a kid with the Star Wars books. So we had come up with this idea to put out this 7-inch and make it a 40-page full-color book with a little pocket that holds the 7-inch. So a friend of mine at the print shop printed all of these out. I had to collate them and staple them and put them all together. I also had to glue every flap to 3,000 copies of this record. And kind of like that one, try to sell this for $8, and people were like, not psyched on that for a 2-song 7-inch, but it's a 40-page book, and it was like not cool. So the price, was like 6 or 7, and we got through 3,000 of them eventually. But it was like the craziest thing to think like, oh yeah, for the next month, every day or every night, like when I get off work, I'm gonna go collate and staple and glue books for someone that's in New York, and I love them and they're my family, and that's why I did it. But it wasn't a business practice that was sound, but those are the kind of things that just didn't really matter. Again, which I've been talking about. So I guess this would be kind of an interesting time to talk about manufacturing. So as I said, you could pay to make stuff, and you had to pay it. You could only sell it for a certain amount of money in the punk world. It was you couldn't sell a 7-inch for whatever it was being. You couldn't sell it for more than $5. It was just crazy. So I started to realize there was all these other obstacles coming in. CDs were kind of becoming a thing, so I started making CDs, which was fine, and then vinyl wasn't selling. Then again, we all know CDs are garbage now. So it's like trying to adjust with different trends, I suppose, in the music industry. So let's see. That's the Jimmy Piccolo Locust 5-inch. So then I started making these weird CDs, like you can see this one, it's a square with the Locust on it. Totally would not play on normal CD players. I'll show you. So I was like, yeah, CDs, man, everyone's buying CDs now, not records, let's make some cool CDs. So I made this one. I had 7,000 of them made, and I can't give them away. I gave them away like online to people that were like sending me $20 for shipping. I give them a box. And this really cool woman made earrings out of them. I was like, that's cool. So I thought let's make CDs because that's what people are doing now, and they didn't sell. Another band that Bobby and I had called Holy Molar, we decided to make this little gatefold CD, which kind of goes back to like the gluing and stuff. But it easily could have been on like one regular size CD, but I thought, oh, it'll be cool to do like a double gatefold CD, and we'll see how that goes. So the gluing and taping and shit was ridiculous, and I don't know, it's funny. Occasionally I'll see them at the record stores for like $1.99. Terrible idea. It was fun though. I thought it looked cute, you know. So I just screwed up. Let me just get this thing. Oh man, this isn't my computer. I did something wrong. Fuck technology. What did I do, man? I'm a Mac person. Where did it go? What happened?
What were you trying to open?
I don't know. I was trying to just go to the next photo and I just fucked everything up. This is why I want this one right here. This is why I don't suggest running a business. Okay, cool. So we're gonna jump around. This is a Locust Airborne Radar puddle record that 3-1G did not release, but it's one that I think is so amazing, and I'm very, very proud that we did this record. So we did it on this many different colors of vinyl, so I could show you all of them, but it would take too long and whatever. But we teamed up with GSL, the label that we were on, and we decided to what's the craziest shape that we could do that's like ridiculous, like the square, and it was a puddle. And so we have these 5 different body fluids listed on there, so you could kind of. This is marketing. This is why I started a business, because I'm really good at marketing. So there's the white and the yellow and the brown and the green and the red. So so it would make people buy 5 copies of this record. And at this time, things were shifting, and you could kind of sell this for $10 or something, or $9, and it was fine. The drag is that we were not putting this one out on 3-1G, it was out on GSL, and we never got paid. So there's that. But it was definitely a very monumental record for me to be part of, and it was a huge influence on 3-1G. So I was like, I just wanted to share that with you guys. What the fuck? Dude, I'm gonna screw it up again.
Just double click on it with the left side.
The left side, okay. Cool, okay. Fast forward a little bit. This is a Swing Kid 7-inch released, regular green, glow in the dark. Glow in the dark, don't ever buy one if you want to listen to it. It sounds like trash, it's all staticky, it makes no sense, but it looks badass in the dark when you're not listening to it. This is the marketing that I'm trying to teach you guys about. Okay. Dude, this is crazy. Okay. So there's that. I just fucked up. So I'm gonna go into this I'm gonna branch out from this marketing thing. I was on Jerry Springer. I did not think it out at all. I thought this would be so cool to go on Jerry Springer. Fuck, I should get a sponsorship from Mac. This friend of mine was like, dude, let's go on Jerry Springer. And I'm like, all right, cool, we'll go to Chicago, they'll pay for it for free. And I didn't really understand the level of marketing that would grant the Locust and 3-1G and myself. I still to this day. So this happened this was a lot of years ago. He was like, let's go on Jerry Springer, and we lied. There was 4 people that were in the house at the time, made up the story. We went. I wore my band's shirt, which was kind of a dick move, but I thought, I didn't really think of I didn't think it out. It was just they were like, dress punk, and we borrowed creepers and shit. It was pretty whack. But we did it, and we performed, and this was again before, so you couldn't, now you can go watch it on YouTube, and that's cool and stuff, but just before YouTube, you had to actually watch it on television, which was cool and fine, but it happened, we performed, we did the thing. We heard it was going to come out in a few months, and it just so happened that I was on tour with another band I played in this festival in Michigan, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, the word is out that there's gonna be this Jerry Springer episode tomorrow. So they announced it at this festival to a couple thousand people, and I think that was really the like pre-viral way to like tell people like, hey, we're doing this thing. So I remember the next day I was in Chicago on tour, and everybody at the show was talking about it, and they're like, we heard that the Locust guy is gonna be on Jerry Springer. So they brought it up in the venue. It was this bowling alley called Fireside Bowl. It's in Chicago, RIP. And everybody was like, they stopped the show, and everybody was like watching this performance, and it was crazy because, well, I was a jerk on the show, but I think there was like subversiveness to it. I mean, I did make out with the dude, and it was kind of wild at that time because it wasn't really, you know, acceptable. So I was like, fuck, man, people are gonna be so bummed on me, like, you know, thinking I made out with the dude. They're gonna like, you know, gay bash me or whatever. And it was the craziest thing because so we played Chicago. I flew home. The next day I was at Kmart. People were like, Jerry. I was at Pokey's downtown. Jerry. I was like, this is fucking crazy. My grandma was like, I saw you on TV. You were great. I was like, dude, I made out with a guy. It was like not, and he wasn't even like hot, and it was really weird. But it became this like thing where people were talking about the guy from the Locust, and it was really good marketing. And I think that a lot of people that run a business don't consider these elements of these tools of marketing. And so I was like, oh yeah. And I wasn't thinking of it as a marketing thing. I was thinking like, sure, I'll do whatever. This sounds cool. I'm open to whatever, literally. And it was just a way to kind of, at the time it was just something to do for fun. But in retrospect, I realized I wore a Locust shirt. I had a goal. I had a point, and I did these things to kind of challenge them. I mean, I sound like an asshole for saying this, but like we wanted to like piss people off. We wanted to be punk, and we wanted to do like things that were kind of questionable at that time. And to me, it was like, yeah, I'll make out with a dude. That'll be rad, and it'll just be fun. And it became a thing. It became like a bigger deal. Like I'll see these lists where it'll be like top, you know, famous blah 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 pranks on television, and it'll be like Gigi Allen on Geraldo. I'm guessing that's pretty good. I'm like, fuck, that's a good one. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, the guy from the Locust. I'm like, whoa, man, that's crazy. I'm up there with Gigi. That's cool. I didn't make that list, but I appreciate being on that. So the Jerry Springer thing. So I started like thinking, okay, I can do all kinds of marketing. This is in Paper Magazine, and they wanted to talk about the Locust, and I don't know what to say, but they took a photo of me, and it looked funny. So just to put things into perspective, Paper Magazine, you know, was like a, I don't know, it was kind of like interview magazine or something. It like kind of had like cool cultural stuff on it. It was progressive, I guess, or it seemed fine to me. So they were like, yeah, we want to cover the Locust. We're gonna send a photographer to your house. We want, you know, we know you know, the band, we were at the time like wild or crazy. We looked crazy. We wore these outfits and stuff. And they're like, we want to do something wild with you. Like, we want to talk about your label and you being in the band. And I'm like, all right. And so they came, and they're like, well, what are you gonna wear? And I was like, I don't know. I got these Speedos, and I'll wear my goggles, which were part of the uniform at the time. And this photographer was like, okay. And so he went and flagged down the ice cream truck, and I went and sat on it. We bought a bunch of ice cream, and I think he made it, maybe the photographer gave the driver like an extra $10 or something to let me sit there. But at the time, it was crazy because I lived in Golden Hill, which was a lot different back then. You know, there were like cholos and shit being like, yo, you know, saying like not so nice things to me, which understandably I was like, yeah, you're right, you know, okay, it's cool. But I was like, I gotta get this photo, just chill out and don't jump me or whatever, like think whatever you want, just leave me the fuck alone and just get this photo done, and I'm gonna be in this magazine. And again, like going back to the marketing aspect, I feel like I was reaching like the wrong people, and that to me that was the best people, because I could go and be in Maxim Rock and Roll, or I could be in, I don't know, even like what magazines were of the time, like Spin, which was cool and huge. But I was like, I want to do like the weird shit. I want to be in the non-musical area and grab people, because I think in my mind the people that were reacting to Jerry Springer that were like psyched on that, or that were seeing stuff like this and psyched on it, were like the weirdos. And maybe they weren't even into music, maybe they weren't into punk, but they were on this sort of level of just, I don't know, maybe they, who knows what they were into, you know? To me, I'm thinking like, oh, they're probably into like Faces of Death, or you know, some like, you know, or into like, I don't know, weird 8-bit like gaming culture or something. And anyhow, I was my point was to find the people that I didn't think were the punks or the hardcore people or the straight edgers. It was, my point was to find the other weirdos out there, and so I thought, I'm gonna try to do these things and meet these people. So I do think maybe it might have helped. It's hard to go like, oh, this is success. You know, I don't know. This was a successful move. I don't know if that was right. I just thought like, I'm gonna do everything and something has to work. Because I don't think it really sold records, but I do think it got attention to the Locust and to a lot of our friends that were paying attention to 31G, or people that were paying attention to 31G. And so that's my point in doing that. And then again, like, not to take myself too seriously. So this is a photo shoot that I did. I went in the grocery store. This is kind of more recent. Becky took this photo where I was hanging to the fish. But I asked the lady, like, hey, can you put the fish head up? And like, I brought my microphone and a cable, and I was like, I'll just do this thing, this photo shoot. Kind of like the weird, you know, ice cream one. This is a little bit less threatening and maybe not as like subversive or something, but it was always like this kind of way to think outside the box. And you know, because at this point, like, CDs fucked me. I made all these CDs and I had all this vinyl and no one was buying shit. So let's see, because I keep wanting to go off on these tangents about not buying shit. Because right now, this is the last day, but if you go on to 31g.com, you can buy the Satanic Planet LP for $1.99, which is like insane because it costs about $5 or $6 to make. So I'm losing. You do the math. So I got rid of like 150 in the last 2 days. It's really cool. So. Don't take yourself too seriously. Okay, so yeah, my point was, with doing all these things was, and I saw this a lot with the Locust 2 on tour, and a lot of the bands that I was associating with, because you look at punk rock and you think punk is aggressive and sort of violent or something nihilistic, and it for all of us, the people involved in 31G, it never was that. But I think what it was we were trying to avoid indifference. So obviously we want people to love us or to like us, what we're doing, we want them to appreciate it. But if they hate it, that's also good. If they're indifferent, then we are not successful. So, you know, it wasn't like, you know, I think like people would maybe see the Jerry Springer thing and not go like, whatever. They'd be like, fuck that guy, or like, that guy's great, or, you know, that guy's a dick, or something. Like someone had something to say about it. Or like the Cholos, you know, they were like, what the fuck is this guy doing in his underwear outside and on the ice cream truck, and like getting pissed at me. I'm like, cool, get mad. And if they were indifferent, then I think it would have been, you know, an unsuccessful endeavor. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Gigi Allen, but again, going back to that, like, he would take a shit on stage and throw it at people, and that was crazy, but he did it. And so we had to move on and do something else, you know. And we had Marilyn Manson, like, doing his weird, like, neo-Nazi crap and like just shit that was like shocking. So I obviously don't want to like act kind of like a neo-Nazi or take a shit, but I thought like, oh, I could go make out with a dude on Jerry Springer, or fucking sit on the ice cream truck, or sing to a fish, and see what happens. And so I was kind of open to this marketing perspective, again, of whatever I could get my hands on. I ended up doing like a ghost hunter, it's called My Ghost Stories thing, like on the History Channel, and it was a lie. We were trying to talk about ghost farts, but they played one of the songs from 31G on it. There's a little bit of a video, and it's like cool. And like it worked because even my cousin was like, you know, called me and was like, I think I saw your band on the History Channel, and you were like talking about ghost farts. I was like, yeah, it worked. So, you know, if my cousin saw it, I'm sure like another, I don't know, million people probably watched it. History Channel is a big, reputable channel. Maybe. So it's gonna get embarrassing in a second. I can't tell what the next photo is. Okay, So there's this photo, and I'm gonna go right ahead to the next one to show you what the hell that is. So this magazine, are you guys familiar with Riviera? It's like a La Jolla thing. I have no idea how this happened. This is like kind of the wildest shit. This isn't the real cover. I think everyone was making fun of me. For one, okay, so I did this for my mom. My mom will be psyched. She's like into this shit, like normal people stuff. Up here it says like Justin Pearson, King of Cool. They changed it to Prince of Punk, which is fucking the worst thing ever. But this was like in La Jolla, like on like Girard Street, like in all the shops, like where all of the wrong people are gonna see it. And granted, I don't look like a douchebag. I'm not in my underwear. I'm not making out with anyone. Like nothing's like that cool. I kind of fucked up here, but I was like trying to take on everything that was possible. Like I'll do this and I'll do that, and one of these things is gonna stick. Maybe some rando in La Jolla would be like, oh, the Prince of Punk, I'm gonna look that guy up and buy his record, and joke's on them. It might have happened. It's funny though, because let me let me see which photo it is. I'll try to show you how so like if you look on the bottom of my shoe, it looks like I have something on it. It's actually blue tape, because I had to go to Neiman Marcus, and they're like, do not get these shoes dirty. They're worth, I don't know, some kind of like, they were like $1,000 sneakers or something. And I had sweatpants on. I was like, who the fuck wears sweatpants, like, you know, and like a suit jacket? It was like the total, like, I was like the ultimate butthole. But yeah, they were like, don't get your shoes dirty, you know. And that was actually my car. I sold it. The clothes I was wearing probably cost more than the shoes. But anyhow, I just figured I'd show you that. Put another placeholder photo up here for you guys to look at for a minute. These are more 3-1G records. So yeah, I just started tripping out on marketing and doing dumb stuff. Some of it paid off, some of it didn't. And a lot of it was creating smoke and mirrors. So being on this cover of this, you know, lifestyle magazine in a cool car, in like a fucking suit or whatever, in like every La Jolla store was smoke and mirrors, when in fact, like, I was barely scraping by. I was on EBT, and that's all fine. But I was trying to trick everybody that wasn't part of what we were, you know, our community, or wasn't part of what we were doing. I was trying to grab people from other elements of the world, or of the community, of the city, or whatever, you know, whoever in La Jolla, and have them kind of like dabble in the weird stuff that we were creating. I mean, for me, it was like, maybe someone in La Jolla would discover Black Dice, and that would be really funny to me, but also kind of beautiful, I guess, in a sense, that someone would discover something like that. Again, I don't know if it ever paid off, but my point was to just kind of try to grab something from nothing. It was free to me. I did it. It didn't set me back, and it seemed funny at the time. Also, I'm going blind. So, talked about the changes in vinyl. I guess the next step would be let's dive into file sharing and the internet and streaming, because that would be the next hurdle that I kind of dealt with. Everything became free. That was interesting, because I remember like paying like $5,000 to record, you know, to like have the Blood Brothers record an album, and it was free online before I could sell a single copy. So if someone wants to come at me or 3-1G about being a capitalist and me calling myself an anarchist, they could suck it, because it was insane to go like $5,000 now is a lot of money, but $5,000 whenever the Blood Brothers record came out in 3-1G was a long time ago, and the fact that you could get it for free before I could sell a single copy was wild. So there's 200,000 new songs that come out every day on Spotify, I think, roughly. I read that recently. I read that within the last year. So 200,000 new songs come out. That's insane. There's no way anybody will discover anything new I'm doing, or anything new anybody's doing, unless there's some kind of algorithm, or you win some kind of fucked up lottery of the musical industry, and you get picked up somehow. So I had to start finding a way to facilitate selling off the stuff that I had, and also kind of stay relevant in the world that was constantly changing, because I was aware that like people didn't care about certain bands or bands were breaking up, and I would be sitting on copies of records, you know, again, I brought records for all of you. You can have them, take them. I can't sell them. I would rather you have them than they sit in a box in my basement for another 10 years. So there's this moral sort of thing where I can talk shit and say like, Spotify sucks. Spotify does suck because they are making a lot of money, and they're making a lot of money and not paying the artists. You know, there's better streaming platforms like Bandcamp and stuff, but running a record label that focuses on stuff like this, vinyl and a physical product, and trying to recreate the business model that I've been dealing with is very tricky. And so, I don't know, I started, again, like, trying to figure out a way to make things interesting and deal with the fact that there was no income from touring or putting out records. So I ended up making friends with people like John Waters. The Locust is in one of his films. It was a tremendous help in pushing the Locust out there. It also was very fucking cool. The dude's awesome. I love the guy to death. He loves the Locust. It was one of the coolest things to come out of, again, nothing. You know, we had recorded a record for, I think, an LP for $2,000. We never got a royalty check for it, but it ended up being in his film, and we got paid $500. And between the 5 people that played that song, I think we each got 100. I also ended up working on an Ozzy Argento film, and I went to Cannes Film Festival, which was very funny because I got to score part of a film and act in it. I actually got paid a little bit of money to act in it. I did not get paid to score it. And a friend of mine paid for me to go there because they were like, this is insane, man. You can go to the Cannes Film Festival and you can sleep on this person's hotel room floor, the sound supervisor's floor. You just need to get there. And I was like, yeah, but I can't afford to fly to France. And they're like, I'll just pay for you to go there. This friend of mine, she has she's like a scientist or something, so she has a lot of money, and she's awesome. And she's like, you have to do this. You have to go. So I went to Cannes. That was totally bizarre. Standing next to Charlotte Gainsbourg. That was weird in itself. But I was in a film with these people. I created this music, helped create part of the music that was in the film, and that is something that I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't have taken the. Because I don't know how to act either. I don't know how to play music or act or start a business or run a business. So I was like, I'll just do that too, and this makes sense. But it was awesome, and I got to experience something that I don't think most people get to. With all that being said, I ended up doing this. This is my friend Martin Atkins. He was in PIL, Ministry, Killing Joke, Pigface. Like, he's in a ton of awesome bands. He also put out these crazy books called Tour Smart. If you're in a band, or even if you're starting a record label or whatever part of the music industry, I highly suggest Tour Smart. He had me as a guest at his college in Chicago when I was on tour. That's an ad that I did for this watch company. Also, I didn't get paid. I got a couple free watches that I sold online. But again, like, meeting Martin Atkins was great. He's awesome, and I ended up collaborating with him on some music, and he is a very influential person. Would tell me things like, if you play a show and you get 2 new fans, you're successful. And I don't think that most people think like that, and it's helped me. It helped me last Thursday when I was in Boston playing to about, I don't know, less people than are here right now. I thought Martin Atkins would be psyched on at least 2 of these people, and he was in all those cool bands, so I kind of powered through it. But those are things that I think help me as an artist and a musician, and also running a record label, because it was a ridiculous thing to be in Boston playing to nobody. Okay, this is I'm gonna jump around with the marketing thing again. So this is another project that I'm part of. That's me on the ground with my friend Mike Crane, who's a bandmate of mine, and that is an actual Houston highway patrolman who pulled us over, and we got pranked by our singer, who was friends with this patrolman. And I don't care that like this is live streaming. I'm telling you it's fine. But like when it happened, there was this photo and it was shared on social media, and it was like, oh, Dead Cross it's this band Dead Cross. They got arrested and blah blah blah. And it was like put out there that we were had a run-in with the cops, and it became like this hype thing, and became a lot of publicity for the band and on our tour. But I will say this: so the officer pulled us over. The people that were in on the prank was one person, the singer of the band, and nobody else. And for whatever reason, the cop chose me and the guitar player. So two things: he pulled. They searched our van. He pulled a handgun out of Mike's bag that wasn't Mike's gun. Mike freaked out and was like, dude, that's not my gun. And then he pulled a bag of cocaine out of my bag, and I've never done cocaine yet, so I was like, that's not my fucking cocaine, dude, you can't do this to me. So he arrested us. It was crazy. Mike was so stressed out, and he told me this later, that he actually shit blood, which is like a pretty big deal. We thought we were gonna go to prison. At one point, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna run, and there's a Starbucks right over there. I'm gonna at least get to that Starbucks. If he doesn't shoot me and I can get in there and like hide, I don't know, behind the counter or something, like, I don't know, like, I was just like, I gotta get out of this thing. Anyhow, long story, I'll try to make it shorter. We got released, it was a joke. I was like, dude, you were the worst human being ever. I hated our singer for a long time. I kind of still resent him for it. It was terrible. But the record label was like, that band was on, released the photo and like did a press release about it and like made a big stink out of it. Kind of going back to like the concept of Jerry Springer and stuff. Like, we just did this stupid thing and like, let's just utilize this tool. It probably helped us sell some records. So go get arrested. This is another marketing thing I did. So because I was in this band Headwind City, I ran into these really nice people that created this cartoon called Uncle Grandpa. They kind of were responsible for Rick and Morty and stuff like that. They were like, do you want to be a cartoon character on this TV show? And I was like, I totally want to be a cartoon character. I don't know if I can play this, but it's called Uncle Grandpa. I was a free sample snack elf, and I actually got paid decent for this. It was, I think I got, I paid let's say, I'll just say I paid half of my mortgage for like 2 hours of work, which is cool. I won't complain, but I was part of this really awesome thing with all these other musicians on it and stuff. And then it turns out I became really good friends with the people that created it, and they're really smart and really brilliant and really creative individuals and inspiring people. So I think going back to all of the kind of marketing tactics that I've come up with, I feel like most people, if you were in a band or running a business and someone said, hey, do you want to be a cartoon character, specifically a free sample snack elf? Would you do it? And most people would probably say, no, I play guitar in Dead Cross, or like I put out records in the office, and I'm like, yeah, I'll totally go and be an elf, and it'll be awesome. And it was the easiest, funnest work I've ever done. I would probably quit music if I could just do cartoons, but that hasn't presented itself to me yet. So here we're getting to the end of like my spiel. The marketing thing and how it pays off. So this is a photo that was taken by Becky of the Locust and Devo. And so everybody knows Devo. If you don't, that's where we got a problem. But this was kind of like an interesting thing to think about. Like, so you think about, let me try to wrap this up. So you think about like starting a business, and you start about a band or even a label. Like, what are your goals? Well, to be financially successful. But I kind of threw that out the window. I think it released the 5-inch picture disc that didn't make sense, or the square record, or the book, or whatever. But I threw that out the window, and my financial success, or I would say this, my success is not financial. My success is things like going to Cannes, being a snack elf on a cartoon, hanging out with Martin Atkins, legend, or meeting Devo and having a fucking killer photo taking with our two bands. And we're kind of like the mutant, stepchild of Devo. And like this just a photo itself means the world to me. It means the world. It meant the world to us, like the Locust. It was a big deal. I feel like all of the stuff that the Locust and everybody on 31G did, even just creating art or being who they are or existing in this weird world that we're in, and doing things from the point of our hearts and not for financial gain, has this insane amount of wealth that you can't, I mean, it's like, you think of like the Zuckerbergs out there, it's like, that guy's a fucking twerp. He's not in Devo, he's definitely not like, he could never do what Gabe Serbian did in The Locust. He's just a fucking twerp. He won some kind of weird lottery, now he's a dick. I don't know. To me, I think like, running a business is just, it's fine. It's not what I should have done. But I did it and I didn't have a choice. And so here I am lecturing you guys on why to do it or why not to. I'm gonna go full circle here and show you this last photo. That's me and Kiss. So this is recent. This is like, I don't know, a year ago maybe. They played. When I was a child, I was heavily influenced by Kiss until I heard that song Beth, and I realized that they were terrible music, and it was really about the way Gene Simmons looked. And I went and saw them, and I will say that Paul Stanley is a fantastic performer and musician. Gene Simmons is still the butthole of rock and roll. And to bring things sort of full circle, let me show you this. So this is this band that I'm in now called Death Club, and this is the new record that we just released, which has Gene Simmons on it naked, and he's got a tiny dick. And so I really did like Kiss when I was a child, but I didn't really understand misogyny, and I didn't understand like just kind of mediocre rock and roll. I just thought they looked cool, and they had fucking pinball machines and shit. So, I thought, let's do this record cover and call it Bad Songs Forever and put Gene Simmons naked with a tiny dick on the cover, and I bet you will get sued, and that will be a big deal, and we'll sell out all the records. And we put the record out, and everyone's like, dude, you're totally gonna get sued. I'm like, that's cool. Okay, not sued, like cease and desist, but you use that, like, you print out that email and you use that pit, like, look at the lawyer said for us to stop because Gene's mad. Buy this record now because this is your last chance, and then you sell all of them. And for some weird reason, Gene didn't do that yet. And I'm like, dude, he's got it. He's like dick size. He's like probably accurate, and it's really small. And I'm not trying to body shame him. I'm just trying to say the guy fucking sucks, and he's a misogynistic dick and plays very mediocre rock and roll. I mean, put him up against David Lee Roth, and he's nobody. It's like he has a cool outfit, but he's not a fucking badass like David Lee Roth. And so that's another way that my mind thinks. I'm like, hey, let's try to get sued and do this thing with Gene Simmons, and like that'll be rad because it looks like a cool cover. I mean, he's with this like these like zombie mutant football people, and anyhow, when Gene contacts us, his legal team, I'm gonna like let everybody on social media and send out the newsletter blast and everything that we're getting sued, and people will buy the record, and it'll be out of print, and it'll be a successful music endeavor, and I will be a successful business person because I put Gene's dick on the cover of a record. That's 31G for you guys. So it's just hard. It's like, here, let's talk about a business, and I'm not a businessman. Let's talk about music. I'm not a musician. I'm just a prankster and a fuck up and a weirdo, and talk for an hour about this massive thing that I could just talk an hour about Spotify and how it sucks. I could have talked an hour about Kiss and about how Gene is a fucking douche, but I tried to tackle all these things. So I don't know. I brought all these other records that I wanted to show you and shit, but I've been talking for a long time. Also, like, totally nervous because it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just rambling and riffing on a bunch of shit. So I did bring a few records. I honestly didn't think there'd be this many people here, so I only brought a few, but I would like to give away some records and some stuff to you guys. And there's some funny shit. Like, I brought some DVDs. If you could still play them, that's cool, and if not, it's on YouTube. But Bobby and I were in this band called Holy Molar, and we made a DVD of like we were like, we're gonna be a rock band and make a DVD, this will be totally rad. But on that DVD we played this kid's birthday party in Arizona. It was like the fucking dumbest thing ever. My mom called it Mitchapalooza. And the thing is, like, we got there and we're like, dude, this is so fucked up. Like, we're playing this kid's birthday party, this is terrible. Like, really, really terrible. Like, this kind of like arrogant, rich, younger kid, and we're just like, the whole thing, we're like, dude, this is gonna be great on the DVD. And it was, and it became like a fucking legendary thing, and it just took us like 2 hours of our lives, you know, and we got free Subway sandwiches and played in this kid's living room. It was ridiculous. Anyhow, a couple of those DVDs, you can have those, because they don't sell anymore, and man, I don't know if I guess that's it. I mean, I think there's like a Q&A thing that's supposed to happen. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. I'm sorry, I tried my best,
great.
and here we go. Well, so if anybody wants free shit, I'm gonna just, there's some vinyl and stuff here. Just please take it, because I've got a lot of it. Yeah, sure. If you don't know what it is, you can sell it. These are pretty cool. Like, these are Flexis. They're like X-rays. They sound like shit. Here's one of those square CDs. This is the DVD that I was talking about. And there's some yeah. Take whatever. Oh yeah, the little CDs, the ones. There you go.